And we're live. Welcome to the next edition of the Professional Practice Builders Society Weekly Tips and Strategy Show. My name is Chris. I'm Sprague. I'm on the screen with my co-host, Dr. Marc Kossmann. Say hi to the folks, Dr. Marc.
Hello.
Boy, that was short and sweet.
Well, you've already introduced me. What am I going to say? Hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to the next episode. We're glad you're here.
Welcome to our living room. You, our individual ideal client who's sitting watching this episode. We'll be talking directly to you tonight. Right, Dr. Marc?
We are indeed. And so we are talking to you about how to distribute your content and
Massively.
how to get wide and massive distribution on it.
Yes, exactly. Massive distribution of content. Because as we all know, well, I won't even go there. But anyway, massive distribution of content. More is more, not less is more.
Well, right. Because if you're going to take the trouble to create something, and hopefully you've created something that's valuable to the person you want to share it with, you want to make sure they can find it as easily as possible. So you don't know exactly where they're going to be on any given moment. So you want to figure out how many different channels can you broadcast this information out to.
Exactly. And tonight you are going to learn the three keys. One, two, three. I have my three fingers on the screen. I'm going to sit and show my thumb, which is hurting right now. But that's besides the point. The three keys to massive distribution. First, you have to figure out where your ideal client hangs out and start from there. Second, you've got to publish this someplace first that you control. And that's a huge key because a lot of people give over control to some of the big boys. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But third, you have to be prepared. If you're going to do this manually, you have to be prepared to put in a lot of time to get this done right. So, Marc, let's kick this all off.
You got to roll up your sleeves and get ready to get some work done.
Exactly. And if my thumb wouldn't be so bad, I'd be rolling up my sleeves. But trust me, folks, you don't want to see the thumb right now. I was out bowling this weekend. It's not a good picture. So, anyway.
Chris injured himself. So.
Yes, exactly.
So,
yes. Go ahead, Marc.
The first key to success here is that, yes, you're not going to know exactly where your ideal client is hanging out today. But, part of why Chris and I have, spent a lot of time over and over again talking about this idea of how well do you know your ideal client? Have you really spent time getting to know who they are, what their interests are? You do want to start to get to know where more or less they hang out. Is your ideal client more likely to be a LinkedIn kind of professional networker? Are they going to be spending time on Facebook? Are they Twitter people? Are they video watchers? Are they podcast listeners? Are they blog readers? So you want to get a sense of where is the most valuable real estate on the web for you to publish your information so that you can get it out to as many of those relevant channels as possible. And you don't prioritize the ones that are still worth getting it out to, but they're not the most likely place for your ideal client to hang out.
Exactly. I mean, let me give you a quick example. I mean, we have a highway around where we live, and I would say hundreds and thousands of people probably drive on that every day. And there's a particular stretch of the highway that gets backed up every single day. For those of you in the Pennsylvania area, it's called Route 422. And if you're in this area, you'll know exactly what I mean, how it doubles or triples your time to get to work. But the reason I bring it up is because there are some billboards along that highway. And what people have figured out is that, look, if my ideal client is somebody who lives in the burbs, works in the city, and drives this route back and forth to work every day, I'm going to buy those billboards and advertising space on those billboards, but I'm not going to spend a lot of money or time buying billboards in other areas. Why? Because my ideal client's not driving in other areas. By the same token, if they're going the opposite direction, maybe out towards, like the Reading area, a different metropolitan area, kind of close to where we live, they're going to buy billboards along that route because they want to attract their ideal clients there. As a great example, the Philadelphia Phillies have a minor league baseball team called the Reading Phillies. They're called the Fighting Phils. Well, Reading doesn't buy, billboards between, I'll say, going down into Philadelphia because their ideal client isn't traveling in there. But on the way up towards Reading, you're seeing those billboards because they want to get you intrigued and attracted to come to the games. And so it is with you. Once you figure out where your ideal client's eyeballs are, once you figure out where they're hanging out online, if they spend all day on Facebook, if they spend all day on Twitter, if they spend all day on Instagram, if they spend all day on Google+, if they spend all day on LinkedIn, that's where you want to start pushing your content out to because you'll have a greater opportunity to affect and to attract those clients. Right, Dr. Marc?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so there's issues of what locations, what kind of platforms do they use in terms of social media, but also what kind of media do they like to consume most easily. I mean, we are very big fans, obviously, of video for a lot of reasons. I mean, there's a lot of data showing the incredible growth of video consumption on mobile devices and all that kind of great stuff. And all of that kind of is part of your strategic planning that always begins with who is my ideal client, what are the problems they have. But now we're also talking about where do they go to look for the information. If you're going to create great content that solves problems, then you want to publish that information and distribute it and syndicate it out to the locations where they're most likely to be researched and found. YouTube is obviously a great search engine just for video content. And there's lots of other examples like that. So you want to be sort of thinking, who is this ideal client? Where do they hang out? Whether it's in print, whether it's online, all of these things give you clues about how to package and position the information that you're putting out there. So.
Right, and especially with how inexpensive well, for lack of a better term, as I was talking billboards before, billboards are very expensive, but with how inexpensive, content is to put out there, relatively speaking.
Right. The expense is your time most of the time, but things like Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn don't cost you anything to use their real estate to kind of put it out there. But of course, that gets us to bullet point number 2, because you don't control those platforms. You want to use them. You want to distribute out to those places where your client is spending time. But you also want to have something that you are 100% in control of as your primary place to start publishing. From there, you're going to move out to those other locations, right, Chris?
Exactly. And just to be completely clear, when we say someplace you're in control of, what we in effect mean is someplace you or the people you have hired or outsourced, or brought into your organization or are using as your providers are in control of. And here's what we mean. I mean, about a week ago, Facebook went down for an hour or something like that. It was in the morning. It was early in the morning. If all of your content only existed on Facebook and your ideal client was out looking for your service at that moment it went down, you would have lost that ideal client if it was only on Facebook. Where if it's someplace you control, someplace that you have
right.
pretty much access to, what happens is yes, that could still go down. But if it goes down for a longer period and you control it, you can move it around. You can do other things with it. You can still attract your ideal client.
But let's face it, there's way deeper issues than that as well. Those are as important as those are. Is that Facebook going down is one thing. As Chris said, your own site can go down too. But the bigger issue is that Facebook can completely change its business model tomorrow, as they have done. People who have really tried to build their presence on a professional page on Facebook, for example, discovered that back in November, suddenly they couldn't reach the people that they had built, likes with. I mean, because Facebook decided, hey, we want to make more money, so they throttled back the ability for people to see your content unless you pay for the views to be pushed out to those people. So by not being in control of the platform, I mean, you can be impacted massively by a change in their business model that has nothing to do with you, or gosh, there's plenty of interesting stories that are just nightmares where someone accidentally publishes information that violates the terms of service. We all use these platforms and we just click agree, right? How many people actually read the page after page after page of fine print? Well, you could violate Google's terms of service on G+, or on Facebook or on Twitter, and suddenly have your entire account suspended. And so if you are really relying on that as your primary channel, you're black, you're gone, you've gone dark overnight. And so you want to build a platform that is your mission control, as Chris and I call it, your own site that you control, that you're paying essentially a hosting fee for, so that it's your account and nobody has any say-so about the content you put on there but you. And then from there you move it out to these other platforms, so you have kind of a safety mechanism built in.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing, kind of the third point here is that, forget for a second a Facebook or a big site going down, and forget about how they might shut you off for a violation of terms of service for a short amount of time. I mean, we probably all know somebody who's been blacklisted from Facebook, for accidentally violating or doing something like, there was an old joke about being in a Facebook jail because when, well, here's the thing, if you requested to be friends of enough people who claim not to have known you, Facebook would actually suspend your account for a week or two and not let you do any new friend requests or anything. And a lot of times it was a misunderstanding. Are there unscrupulous people out there? Sure, but we know you're not one of them. We know if it would happen to you, it would just be a misunderstanding. But there's a third level to that, and that is having your account completely deleted. There's been
Right.
times when, without question, without warning, the account goes away, and it's because some robot or something that Facebook or LinkedIn or Google or Twitter or one of the services uses has said, look, we have a checklist, and A, B, C, and D have all been checked off. We're not going to ask any questions. Bye-bye. And if they do
Right.
that to you and you housed all your content on there, then it's gone. And
Right.
it's not only just,
Absolutely. And it happens. It's not just a story to make you nervous. I mean, there was an article not that long ago about a woman who had a very successful online marketing platform business that she had built, but her fatal flaw is that she built the entire thing on Google's free platform Blogger. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Google is a perfectly good company, and Blogger is a great, easy to use blogging platform. But again, you don't really control it. So when we say creating mission control, we're not talking about the free account on Blogger or even the free account on WordPress.org, because those you're just basically building a site on somebody else's platform. Well, her entire business, was removed overnight because literally someone had hacked into her Blogger account and had posted some things that she hadn't even posted, and it was just gone. There was no notification to her. They just shut down the site, and it took her months actually to get her business rebuilt. So
yeah,
don't do it.
yeah, exactly. And it kind of leads us into, the third point. And I say kind of because, as you can probably tell, having your own information, doing everything yourself is going to take you a lot of work. And through studies and through our own trial and error and everything we've done, we're here to give you the hard truth today. And the hard truth is that if you're going to do this manually and do it yourself, you're going to set aside one full 8 to 12 hour day per week. In other words,
Yeah.
4 days a month to do this manually. Now, let me be the first to tell you, people are going to tell you, look, there's automation out there and everybody's making this automation simpler and simpler and simpler. Sure, there are things like that out there, but the fact of the matter is this, is when you want your content to be wide and massively distributed, which is where you need to be to get over that critical mass, to get people to know you, to get people to understand your platform, to get people to understand you, to get your message to the world, to get you the clients you need, you can't just stop at the simple automation that may exist out there. There are hundreds of platforms you need to be on over and above the big three, the big four, the big five, depending on what you want to talk about, that you need to get your content out there, because it's what all goes into you getting found quickly on Google or on other search engines, and it's all what goes to raising your search rankings. And we're not here to go really deep into all the technical things, but I mean, Dr. Mark, I mean, there's one company promotes 10 by 10 by 4. We're kind of coming up with our own strategy that people are going to hear about over the next couple of months. That's why they need to stay tuned and sign up for to get on the weekly newsletter and to get
Yeah.
reminded about these shows, because we've got what we believe is a better system for you coming up in the future. But if you choose to do this on your own, which I would challenge you to at least start doing it on your own, and want to build that clout, build everything else, you need to put a lot of work in. I mean, Mark, I'm going to throw it to you for a quick second. We got about a
Yeah.
minute left, but before we get into the wrap up, I mean, I know we both started at pretty much the same place. In other words, doing this ourselves. Wasn't it really a
Right. Well, and
pain?
honestly, I mean, I agree with your 8 hour a week assessment, including the automation. I mean, when you're doing it yourself, I mean, this isn't just manual. I mean, you're going to use some tools, you're going to use some plugins that you can build into your site, but managing all those tools yourself even with the automation, I mean, it is a very real budget to say that you're going to spend about 8 hours a week, to be able to have a good, solid content marketing system working for you in this way. But if you don't do it, then essentially, you're not communicating your message to any place where people are going to find it easily and see it. So it does take some dedication, but it's worth it, is what I would say.
Yeah.
If you do have to bootstrap and build it yourself and do it yourself, understand that it's time that it's incredibly well spent, and that you'll get a better return on investment with that 8 hours than you will with an awful lot of other activities that you're doing. It's easier to spend time distributing your content than going to 10, 15 different networking meetings and things like that, as well as important as those are. So
exactly, and really the 8 hours is where you hit that critical mass. I mean, we always talk about return on investment and law of diminishing returns and all these other these fun I'll say financial and or other topics like that, or at least we do privately, so you might not hear about them, but the whole point is this: you've probably heard of the law of diminishing returns, which says you put so much effort in, and once you get past a certain point, you start to lose your return on investment. And what we found through our research and through working with hundreds and thousands of clients and doing this stuff, and from talking to hundreds and thousands of people, is the fact that for manual effort, even with a little automation, 8 hours is pretty much where you hit that law of diminishing returns, somewhere in the 8 to 12 hour range. And that's why we say that if you're going to do this manually, more power to you. If you need to bootstrap, we've all been there. I mean, let's face it. I can't tell you how many companies I've bootstrapped, and Marc as well. At the beginning, everybody's bootstrapping, and if you need to bootstrap, great. Just realize you've got to invest your time versus your money. But if you want a better way, a simpler way, what we encourage you to do is at least take the first step and join us. If you're not watching this on the Professional Practice Builder Society website, go to pppsociety.com and make sure you get on the list to get notified of new episodes, upcoming events that we're doing.
Right. And just to be clear, subscribing there is absolutely free. So just get on that mailing list so you get these notifications and you know when the next episode's coming up and what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And that way, you can, at any given time, you should be able to see, I'll say roughly about two. If you subscribe, you'll get notified of these, and you'll be able to see about 2 episodes at any given time. In other words, there's kind of always the previous episode, and then usually on a Wednesday we switch over to the next episode, so you'll be able to at least catch up a little bit, but yeah, like that.
But your next best option is you can actually join the society. You can join us as well and have the full archives and all that. But subscribing, you'll at least get the notifications, you know what's coming up, and you won't miss the good stuff that Chris and I are trying to create for you.
Exactly. So head out to pppsociety.com, subscribe for free, and then if you're so inclined, if you like what you see, or if you like us and resonate with us, think about joining the society. And you know what, Marc? I think that's about it.
We're out of time, aren't we?
Yeah, we're out of time. So until next time.
So what he said.
What he said.